You were promised content on today's episode, and you're going to get it. And not only are you going to get it, but you're going to get it from a guy who has been in the industry for so many years. I mean, I think he's like 320 years old or something like that. I mean, he's legendary. Yeah, pretty much. Some people call him the most ripped off writer on the web. Some other people call him the most respected writing teacher alive. The adjective legendary has been placed in front of his name, as well as some other adjectives, which we can't say because then I have to give the show an explicit rating. But he has worked with Jay Abraham and Gary Halbert and legends of direct response. His name is John Carlton, and I want to welcome him to Joel.LIVE. Hey, John.
Hi, Joel.
I'm so sorry.
No see. We've been Facebook buddies for so long that,
Mea culpa. John is...
Hey, we go through this all the time when we do podcasts, and it's not unusual. So,
yeah, well, we resolved it. You've been a good sport. I figured that we'd have to start the show with the explicit rating, but you seem to be in good spirits. So welcome. By the way, this is your first foray into a Facebook Live, right?
Yes, that's one of the reasons I was anxious to do this sooner rather than later, was because you, being one of the pioneers of Facebook Live, you're the guy to do this with. So I wanted to see how to do it smoothly. And of course, you showed me how to screw it up from point one. So I've gotten the best lesson I could possibly get right off the bat. So,
well, the beautiful thing is that you can do it from your phone in the Facebook app Live, much simpler. We're using BeLive.tv today, as you can see from the watermark that's up there on the picture. And this is an easy way to do a face-to-face broadcast. And if you're watching on Facebook, you'll also see that I'm able to click on comments that people are making on Facebook and post them directly here onto the broadcast. Michael Copeland says, "The man, the myth, the legend."
Yeah.
And so I hope you'll be encouraged to do some of your own live stuff. But what I want to do now is I want to hammer people with some content. Because we called this episode 3 Ways to Murder Your Business in 2017. So I'm going to let you just drop some knowledge on us.
Yeah. Well, this is one of my favorite subjects, is talking to people about their business, about the getting into the entrepreneurial world. And I was a freelance copywriter for most of my adult life. My adult life having started when I was 35 years old. So I was a late bloomer, so to speak.
Just last year.
Yeah, right. No, it was like 30 years ago. I screwed around a lot all through my 20s, and a lot of that stuff became fodder for what became my career. So it made me a better copywriter. But something I realized probably 10 years into the gig as a freelance writer was that was really an entrepreneurial activity. I was an independent business owner. And even though I didn't call myself an entrepreneur, the people I worked with were often entrepreneurs. And after I started working with Gary Halbert, they were all entrepreneurs. We seldom worked with corporations at that time. So my love has always been in the entrepreneurial world. And as a guru, 15 years ago, I decided to be a guru, wrote my book, started speaking around the country and setting up coaching programs like the Simple Writing System. And I take on private coaching, and I like to deal with people. I like to roll up my sleeves. I've got them rolled up here, and dive into people's personal business problems, also their personal problems. As Joe, as you well know, whenever you deal with someone in business for more than a couple of weeks, personal stuff is going to come up to the fore. It's part and parcel of being in business. You can't separate.
It's like a stew, right? It's all mixed in there together.
Right. And often what the way I fix things is I have a degree in psychology. I've been a lover of pop psychology my entire life. My podcast with Kevin Rogers is called Psych Insights for Modern Marketers. We like to get into the brain and rattle things up. So there's a marketing side to your brain. There's a personal side. There's all this stuff that goes on. So one of the things that I realized when I was really getting into doing hot seats with people, I call the coaching stuff I do hot seats. I realized that there were a number of things that I kept bringing up, that I kept going to as my go-to bag of tricks when I was dealing with people. And what we're going to talk about today is the ways people can screw up their business. A lot of people don't think about that. When you read books, if you pick up the average book on how to be an entrepreneur, there's not going to be a section on how to screw it up. They're going to assume that you do everything right. They're going to assume that the universe is going to become aligned with your desire to make a lot of money and do a lot of cool stuff. And as experienced entrepreneurs, we know that's not true. That is complete and utter nonsense. So I pulled three rules, three of my favorite rules out of here about how entrepreneurs typically screw up their biz. And there's a lot more, but these are the three we'll talk about today. And they're kind of fun, and they should open a few eyeballs out there. I assume the audience has at least a few people who are entrepreneurs or desire to be entrepreneurs, or maybe, like a lot of the copywriters I know, don't realize they're entrepreneurs because they're independent. They're running their own thing.
But by the way, John,
write-off is,
as you're getting ready to go into that, I just want to make sure people understand, because for those who haven't heard of you, I know you don't write copy for others anymore as a writer.
Rarely, yeah. I'm more on the helping.
When you were writing copy, can you like ballpark how much you charged to write a letter?
Yeah, I always was, from almost the beginning of my career, I was at the top of what writers were charging. So when I first started out, that was $2,000 a letter with no back end. And one of the things that I started doing was I was ghostwriting for some of the top writers in the biz, such as Gary Benzavinga. I would write special reports for him for his stuff. But with Jim Rutz, I actually ghost wrote the entire packages. And Jim would pay me $2,000, but he was the pioneer. And a lot of people don't know who Jim Rutz is, but for the insiders, he is a god among copywriters. He invented the Magalog, that is the primary direct mail vehicle now for the largest mailers in the universe. Anyway, when I was writing for them, he paid me cash to ghostwrite these letters that he would turn in. He could write them himself, but he was doing a lot of different deals. So I was privileged to be able to learn from him and also ghostwrite these letters. Meanwhile, his arrangement with the corporations he was writing for was a percentage deal. So he would get like a nickel a package in direct mail, and later he would just get a like 5% of whatever the gross coming in or whatever. So I would get $2,000, write it, and he was getting like six figures, like $100,000. This is back in the 80s. So that started shifting, and then I was getting a taste of this because I would write the letter, I would do all the slavery, and I'd get $2,000, be very happy because that was my going rate. And he gets six figures. I go, wait a minute, he says, make the deal yourself. And there were like no other writers doing that. Jay Abraham was dabbling in that, but it wasn't a common thing to do. So writers started picking up on this. We started charging either a percentage or a fee plus a percentage. And I had several deals with longtime clients where it was just a percentage. It was like 5% of the gross, not the net, but the gross. Very, very important distinction there. And the last piece I think I wrote for somebody was $30K up front plus I think it was 5% of the gross. Something
perfect.
Like that. So just to position that.
That helps people understand the value of wisdom, what you're going to hear from John. And with that said, go ahead and jump into where you were going.
So these are three ways to screw it up. And by presenting it in a way that you will screw it up, it will also show how to do it right. So for me, the key to this, and this is the last setup I have for this, the key to my career was I didn't know what I was doing when I became a copywriter. I had to make it up on my own. There were no books, there were no courses, there was no nothing. I never met a freelance copywriter when I became one. When I became a coach and a guru, I was kind of making it up too, though I was hanging out with Gary Halbert, who was a master at it, and I was picking up a lot of stuff. But I was making this stuff up. All through my career, the way I learned the best was to make the mistakes, figure out what I'd done wrong, lick my wounds, learn what I needed to learn, and develop the skills I needed to go back and do it right, and then go do it right. Kind of like getting in a fight at school. Your first fight, you stand there and you get the shit kicked out of you. You go home, you learn a few skills, you learn how to box, you learn how to throw a punch and all this stuff. You go back and you do it right. That metaphor is the same in business. You're going to get your nose bloody, then you figure out, how did I go wrong? What do I need to do to fix it? And then do those things. Either learn new skills, get new information, get a coach, do whatever you need to do, then go back in and do it again. Because I was a freelancer, I was able to do that. So for me, looking at it from how to screw it up first and then figuring out how to do it right, that to me is the best learning process in the world. That is the school of hard knocks. So the first thing I'm going to talk about 3. The first thing is what I call the second rule of awesome entrepreneurship. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I see entrepreneurs doing, even veteran entrepreneurs. And the mistake they do is that they take a simple, elegant idea, and when it starts to work, when it starts to make money, you know what the second thing they do is, Joel?
Kill it.
They start to complicate the hell out of it. They take this simple, elegant idea that is bringing in cash, and then they decide, well, let's spread it out. Let's start a membership site. Let's bring in investors. Let's take it to the next level. Let's do all this stuff to do it, and they forget that this simple, elegant idea. Often, when entrepreneurs come to me, the problems that they have are all self-generated. They have been sabotaging everything, and so what they've got is this big bloated thing. And I say, how did you make money at the very start? It says, oh, it's very simple. We went to AdWords. We took those people, we emailed them stuff, and then we sent them to a small site. We sold them and they bought it. And then we did it again for the back end and blah, blah, blah. And it was very simple, elegant, straightforward little funnel. And when that started working, then they started complicating things. And that little elegant idea became crushed under the weight of all these other things they were doing. So the first thing is just to realize that a natural tendency that you have as a entrepreneur is to complicate everything. Is to just it's the bright shining light syndrome. It's like you're thinking, oh wow, I'll pick on membership sites because that was a big deal for the last few years. We'll start a membership site. And it's like, you better have a darn good reason for that to happen before you start doing it, because it will consume your time. It will require additional staffing. It will require possibly investment in more digital infrastructure. There's all this stuff that happens. And if you're doing it because you think that's what you do in a business, often that isn't the thing. Amazon is really kind of a simple, elegant idea. They are a marketplace. If you want to have your products available on Amazon, people will come in, type in, they're looking for, Joel Comm's latest book, and they'll go to Joel Comm's page. There's your book. They order it. They have one-click ordering. They're always trying to simplify things, and that's why they're the behemoth they are. Whereas, not to pick on the bookstores, but the large bookstores, some of whom vanished in our lifetime, still insisted that find the book, call the bookstore. Is it there? Yeah, come down and look. It's in the stack. Yeah, I think we have one copy left. You go down, oh, we sold that copy. Sorry, but we can order it, and then you can come back down in 2 weeks. And, join our book club and, go have coffee while you're waiting and we look, and all this stuff, it just complicates things. In the digital world, we have the opportunity to be as simple as possible. And that is probably the primary rule. Keep it simple, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. That has been my guiding rule.
I've done it. I know I've overcomplicated stuff before. And I kind of look at, Twitter. I'm dabbling with the idea that Twitter has done this because they had this simple, somewhat elegant idea. And
so right on. Yeah.
Yeah. And then began, copying Facebook in every way and lost their way, perhaps. I'm not sure. Maybe they needed to evolve, or maybe they just overcomplicated it. So that's number one way to murder your own business. And by the way, we're not, for those that see the topic, we're not talking about like murdering your business in a good way. We're talking, this is how you actually kill your business, not kill it in your business. Overcomplicate things, and you are it's not good. So, okay, number 2 way to sabotage your own business.
I'm just in awe of your psycho mimic there.
Wasn't that good?
I envisioned Janet Leigh going down for the last time. So,
shower curtains popping off. Pop, 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 pop.
Yeah, but that one shot where she kept her eye open and didn't move her iris during the close-up in Psycho. One of the best camera scenes ever. So that's one. The second one is what I call magical thinking. I think most people understand what magical thinking is. For those who don't, it's a psychological term, which means most humans live in a state of denial and magical thinking. They think that there is if they really wish really hard that they'll win the lottery, they can win the lottery. That's how people win the lotteries. They wished harder than the other people. Not true at all. So magical thinking is an entrepreneur.
I'm wishing. Yeah, wait, don't bother me. I'm wishing. Yeah, it hasn't happened.
Yeah, which is like how Twitter is, not to pick on Twitter. Heck, let's pick on Twitter or Yahoo. Yahoo just wished really hard they could make it work. It's just, if we're here and it's anyway. The magical thinking is you think, hey, I'm a successful dude. I made a business work. So we're talking about entrepreneurs who made that simple, elegant idea work and the funnel worked. Then the next thing they think, the thing they think after they first complicate everything and try to ruin it, if they survive that, the next thing they think is they get more success and they start thinking, I'm a successful guy. I can do anything. So I'll just do a lateral shift to another market and I'll start something new. And because I'm this awesome dude who succeeds, I'm going to make this a success. And they forget that, they forget the process. The process is, you research, you grind, you do the work, you test, you have initial failures. You conveniently forget how you got successful in the first place, which was not a simple, hey, I'm here, send me money, and everybody starts writing checks. Wow, you are awesome. I'm going to send you, $100. That's not how it works. You have to go through a lot of stuff. So this magical thinking that because you succeeded once or even a couple of times, and I deal with veteran guys who have done multiple businesses, and they think they have the green thumb, and they're going to go out and shortcut everything, and that's a way to murder your new ventures. A lot of people that I coach and consult with, they come limping in because they just got their ass handed to them with a new venture in a new market where they didn't do their due diligence. So that's number 2.
It happens to all of us too. I mean, my email that just went out this morning, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I talked about the dirty secret that we've all stepped in it. And, we tend to see there's these marketers that everything is sunshine and roses and rainbow farts. And the reality of the situation is we have people that we hire that are bad hires. In my case, one that embezzled from me, another one that almost destroyed my company. We all invest in businesses that we have no real business investing in, get distracted, which I did, and it cost me 6 figures more than once. But, we like to just prop up our successes. Well, I did this, and this, but it leaves out all those big gaps of the things that didn't work, that we failed at. Yeah.
And it can relate to romance too. Your first great love that you have, a lot of times you have to romance them. You have to go through a lot. And sometimes it's a great love in your life because you went through a lot of angst to do it. It wasn't easy. It required everything you had to be able to do the right things. And then later on, the second time you marry the girl, the girl you had a one-night stand with the next morning. Let's get married. We're in Hawaii. This is very common that humans do this. And in fact, this leads us into the third thing, which is all about self-sabotage. So let's just dive into the third one, which I call boredom. The third one, which I call boredom. And I'm going to read this because I wrote it down. So you love the thrill of taking an idea to profitable fruition. This is the definition of a successful entrepreneur. You have this idea, you kind of put it you make it work, you develop a really simple funnel, and you make it work, and it happens. It's very exciting. I'd say the most exciting time I ever had as a freelancer was the first check I got. The first one, it was like $200, I think. And, I framed it until I needed it to pay the rent because I was living, check to check, early on. Yes. Ka-ching. Where's my sound effect thing? Damn it. I have a fart gun too from Despicable Me.
I have a fart app, dude. So
I know you do. You have the first and the biggest fart app.
How do you not have a ka-ching button? Did I not send you a ka-ching button?
No.
Okay. We'll take care of it.
Dean sent me an easy button once. I don't even have that. No, anyway, let me finish this. So the thing is, you get this elegant, simple idea going, and it happens. But what happens right after you make a simple, elegant entrepreneurial idea happen is that you are no longer an entrepreneur. You're now a manager. And that's a totally different set of skills. Running a business is entirely different from creating a business. And what happens is that, this is the big warning, you may sabotage your own success because you're unhappy as a manager. Managing a business can be very, very boring. It's like what we had to deal with. You're dealing with details. You're dealing with technological breakdowns. You walk in and it's not, hey, here's an idea. It's not picking up the phone and talking to another entrepreneur and saying, here's an idea. Why don't we, and then we can do this. And then that's all exciting and thrilling. A manager comes in and the phone calls he has are, hey, the web's down. All our tech's not working. We've been hacked. Susie left and took took the list with her. And so-and-so wants a raise, or, we're having trouble meeting the payroll this month, or, it's problem. You got to start becoming a manager. This can become very boring. Inside your head, you start thinking, I was so happy when I was an entrepreneur. And unconsciously you'll think, let's murder this business we have, and then we can start over and we'll be happy again. And that's not the way to do it. So what smart entrepreneurs do, of course, is they design a business, bring it to fruition, make, what's profitable, and then sell it, or hire somebody to come in and be the CEO or something. So you can go, like Steve Jobs was not a good manager of Apple. I mean, he was a brilliant guy, but if you've read his book and his biographies, he was better when they brought him in, not as the CEO, but as an intrapreneur. I think they invented the term for him. So within Apple, they finally brought him in and gave him his own crew to go off. And that was in the early 90s, I believe. And the result was what I'm on, an iMac. I've got my iPhone here. All of that came from Steve Jobs having the freedom to be a consistent entrepreneur within the larger structure that would fund him. So that was a perfect setup for him, because when he was just a manager, he was not very good. So you just gave
me a perfect setup, because later this month, my guest on Joel.LIVE is going to be Andy Grignan. And Andy was one of the 10 original iPhone developers that worked under Steve Jobs. He worked on the iChat and a number of the other apps, and then was one of the 10 that Steve came to and pulled on this team. So that's going to be great fun. You guys are going to want to watch for that. Okay, so sum up. Go ahead, hit us with the 3 ways to murder your business in summary.
Second rule of entrepreneurship: you take a simple, elegant idea and complicate the hell out of it.
Okay.
Second one, magical thinking. You think because you're a success in one thing, you're going to always be a success, and you can shortcut the process you took to becoming a success. Third is boredom. You love the thrill of being an entrepreneur. You loathe waking up every morning when you become a manager. Unconsciously, you will start fighting yourself. One of the biggest things I understood about human beings is that there's no Joel there. What there is this office inside your head, which we call a brain, and there are 15 characters in there. There's the good Joel, the bad Joel, there's the sabotaging Joel, there's the stern, scolding Joel who reminds you of your mother, who you have to go lock in a closet somewhere because you're never, what are you doing? You're never going to succeed. You're a big failure. There's the childish Joel. There's the adult Joel.
Are we talking marketing, or are you reading me the script for Sybil? I'm not sure which.
Right. Sybil had, the multiple personality. So
only
really are like
get that. Only some are going to get that. Yeah. Some are going Sybil who.
That's dating yourself too. So, yes. But anyway, because that was the 70s, man. So anyway, if a lot of people can imagine in their head, they know there's the me there at the control. And then there's the me who's kind of scared and the introverted me. And then there's the extroverted me. And I can understand that. What we don't understand, there's like a lot of people crammed into that, and a lot of people trying to break into the control room. And a lot of it is unconscious. They're emotional, they're irrational. And, that's, a lot of entrepreneurs learn to trust their hunches, but you got to overcome some. If you think because an entrepreneur who had a hunch and made it work, if you don't understand what that hunch was, because they're almost never what other people think hunches are. People think a hunch is, an idea just pops into your head, you go do it, it becomes successful, and you're great. That's not the way it works. A hunch is, this might work. Let me look into it, do the grind work to see if it's going to do and start testing it. And then maybe the hunch works. A lot of people, just go off on hunches, and those are emotional disturbances going on in their head. And if you don't understand where your hunches are coming from, if you haven't got a track record of your hunches being good, bad, or both, that you can look at and say, well, most of the time my hunches are okay, but not perfect. Or for most people, my hunches suck. They feel right. They really feel like I should do it. And that's your emotional side, really wanting something, really wanting the outcome. That's different than a hunch of how to make something work in the real business world.
I got totally different thing. Of hunches. Matt's got a great question here. What if you're the product? How can you have a manager?
Oh, I did it. I hired, one of the first things that happened when I became a product, a guru. I was writing books and going on to stages all over the world to speak and do stuff. It was just me and a part-time assistant, and I was mailing stuff literally out of my house. We would go to Kinko's and print off the courses, and Kinko's, it dates me too. Kinko's. So we would print off all the stuff and actually mail it. I would go to the mail drop, and we'd put stamps on stuff and mail them out. I was making a lot of money, but and then I found a place to handle that. But one of the first hires I made, when I realized that I was now an online guy, I was now dealing with technology, because when I first gave my first speeches in 2001, 2002, 2003, I was using an overhead for my slides. I had those see-through, those transparencies, and I'd have an overhead with, 500 people in the audience, and I'd put the overhead on. Dan Kennedy there wasn't PowerPoint back then. There were ways you could put some video together, but that was very complex. So most of us were still using overheads. Your hair is fine. You have a cowlick.
I'm like, so, yeah, what's going on here?
Yeah. So I moved to PowerPoint. I had an early website up that I just had my nephew's tech teacher put up. This is 2001, 2002, I forget. And I just made it up. I, put testimonials on two sides and copy down the middle and had them go offline to contact me, to buy stuff. We didn't go to an auto page. There were no online merchant accounts at the time. I got one of the first online merchant accounts from B of A. Anyway, I started realizing I needed some tech help. Longtime buddy of mine, brilliant guy who was consulting already with places like NATO, Starbucks, Wells Fargo about technology. I just called him up. I said, listen, the entrepreneur world online is exploding right now. I need help. You want to come on board? And that was my good buddy, Stan Dahl. We made one promise when we got together, which was, if it ever affected our friendship, we would dissolve the partnership. And that hasn't happened. It's been 12 years or something. Very, very happy.
That's really wise.
He has permission.
That's a wise tip. Go ahead and say that pledge you made one more time.
Yeah, he was a friend of mine first, longtime friend. We'd traveled together. We'd done a lot of stuff. I'd known him for 20 years at the time. So I knew his essence. So the friendship was more important than the business. So we said, I don't know if we wrote it down. We might have. We do have a contract. It was, if this ever impacted our friendship, we would dissolve the partnership happily, immediately, and walk away and try to keep the friendship intact. That never happened. He has permission to yell at me, and he does, because sometimes I need that. I certainly have yelled at him. And there's just a fundamental love there that, we respect and like each other. We live in different cities, but he essentially manages me in a lot of ways, and manages the business. He's just brilliant at that. And he's, he could be on his own. He doesn't need me, but he decided, it was a challenge for him. So he took it over. So yes, you can find a manager to manage all people. Tony Robbins has people managing him. Jay Abraham has always had what he called, didn't call them managers, but they were essentially low-level partners that he had who ran the business because he couldn't run the business either. Gary Halbert always had people who tried to manage him unsuccessfully because he was so chaos-oriented. That was a big part of his success. But yes, you can manage anything.
John, let's play a game of what is it? I walked out on my front stoop today, opened the door, and there was something on my doorstep. And I looked up.
Burning bag of dog shit?
Flaming. The hate mail's coming in. I looked up and there wasn't a cloud in the sky, though rain was in the forecast. And somehow this ended up on my doorstep. What is it? I don't know what to make of it.
That's funny, Joel. It's a phone book.
A phone book. What do I do with it? I mean,
in fact, it's yellow pages. It's all yellow pages.
It's all yellow pages in business. I mean, we used to go to Z's and look up the funny names, right? And read the Z's. The very last entry in this book is Zydeco's. Okay, that's not all that funny. But we do have Zuspan and Zuspan. But so for some people, this would be lead gen, right?
Yeah.
But
when I started out my career, there was no web. This is in the 80s. And I got a lot of my first jobs from the want ads in the Los Angeles Times. There was actually a section for writers wanted. There was a section for advertising and ad agencies. So a lot of times I'd work for an agency who was looking for a freelancer. Other times I just picked up jobs with entrepreneurs who were looking for a writer. Writer needed for an ad. And I would be writing ads that would go in the newspaper, go on the radio. But not so much TV then, but certainly in direct mail. So, yeah. So
right?
A lot of old school guys freaked out when the web came along. They resisted it. They fought it. A lot of people we know still have AOL email addresses. F that, and they never check it. I still have it. Yeah, I still have mine because it was free. But I was an early adopter, so I was old school. But I immediately recognized the web as a new vehicle for information. It was not any different than anything else we do. It was kind of an amalgamation of radio, TV, in person, and the immediacy of say being in the same building with a lot of different people. It was just a great way to multiply your effect. So rather than direct mailing to 100 people or 1,000 people, you could send an email out to 100,000 or 1 million, and a lot of the costs dropped away. So I saw this. Yeah, somebody put waste of a forest. Somebody just commented. The tree killing old school stuff was great in that it was hands-on. I still like to do a lot of hands-on stuff, but I love the web. And I loved it from the very beginning. I was an all the jokes about, early email stuff. I had email, affairs essentially, where just, you don't realize how much people are getting emotionally invested in your emails coming by. There was, I never got hacked, knock on wood, but there were all these problems. I had a friend's son who was young and emailing me, and he sent me this thing that captured my computer, and he thought it was really funny because he had control of my computer once. So I learned in the 90s never to download, anything from anyone unless you know exactly what it is you're going to download. So that was early on. It wasn't a phishing scam. He thought it was funny, and it was like the kids in class now. There's that tone you can put on your ringtone that adults can't hear and kids can hear. You know about this, right? And so in classes, it's like the teacher doesn't know these people are texting and they're getting in the noise, and you just can't hear it anymore after age 20. your hearing goes off. So it's just that sense of not being connected, even though I'm an old geezer now. You know, I still, a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues, they're younger guys. So many Nigerian princes, so little time. Somebody just
Larry B's in the house too. Hey, Larry, just give you a shout out there. Our friend Larry Benet.
Oh, Larry Benet.
Yeah. Hey, well, somebody, more than one person has made note of your environment, and you have a Rolodex, speaking of old school, over your left shoulder. Do you still use that?
Yeah, and I actually recommend a couple of old school things. I recommend that people keep journals, especially when you're going through something new. Just download every night. Now, I actually keep less of a written journal but I do something called status reports to myself. I write a letter to myself, often 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes once a week, sometimes every day, sometimes multiple times when things are going on, when I need to work out stuff. It's me and the page, and that's how I think. Journals are that way. If you're starting a business, if you're ending a business, if you're going into some new adventure, if something's happening to you, keep a journal, because you're going to forget. You're never going to remember everything that's going on. Keep track of your emotional responses, what you're doing in the physical world. Keep track of how this is affecting you spiritually, all the stuff that you're going to forget. So pen and paper is really good. The reason I like things like Rolodexes is that I can look on a Rolodex and I can see the old numbers, and I can look and I can see, oh, there's Joel. There's Joel's number when he lived in LA. There's Joel's number when he was, you know, his first. I have your AOL, email up there. Also there's a history. There's a visceral sense of the relationship that goes on. So I love Rolodexes. I have stuff in here. I have, I haven't cleaned it out. So I got Kinko's numbers in there, and stuff that doesn't exist anymore. And it's kind of interesting because you go through there and it's like a little history project. It's a little bit of where you were. It's where other people were. And I like to keep the same card. So and what online or what digital stuff is like is that if everything changes, you just rip that card out and put a new card in digitally. So you don't remember where else you lived unless you have that kind of lock trap memory. It's interesting to see how people have changed. I have cards in here of people it's just dense. It looks like I bled all over the card because of all the little notes and stuff going on, because that was a complex relationship with a lot of different numbers. And sometimes I've had to call old numbers, or mail to old places to be able to track somebody down when they move and things like that. So yeah, there is a lot of use for offline stuff. I don't like to murder too many trees, but I keep notebooks around, and I use them a lot. So there's different ways of thinking. It's like writing a manuscript. When I'm writing an ad and it's going to be like 20 pages or something, I will print off the first version, and then I'll go back and I'll edit on Word, and I'll do that. But I will print off, if it's a big major thing, I will print off multiple versions of it before I hit refresh, because sometimes I'll go back and I'll pick the first headline I had instead of the 50th headline. If I'm making the changes digitally, I don't have that record anymore. So, the way to write a headline is to write it out in the middle of a blank sheet of paper, and then start working on it. Change this word, do this, insert this. So you got the original headline, suddenly it's all garbled, and there's all this other stuff, and you can see the genesis of your thinking. And you may go back with the third headline, or the 50th, or the 49th, or the first, or start all over. Yeah, so that's old school.
Well, I appreciate you, John. This John Carlton has been my guest today here on Joel.live. And if you joined us late, then make sure you go and watch the replay that will be in the same place here on my Facebook page, and you can share that. John, where's your favorite place for people to connect with you?
My blog is like a one-stop entry into John's world. That's john-carlton.com, JOHN-CARLTON.com. I didn't grab John Carlton fast enough. A woodworker in Boston grabbed it. He got drunk one night and got it like minutes before I tried to get it. So I've been john-carlton.com for a long time.
Can they subscribe to your Marketing Rebel newsletter through that site?
No, the Marketing Rebel newsletter is gone. I had an offline newsletter that I would mail monthly. I may get back into that. We'll see. But I'm not doing that now. So the blog is over 10 years old. It was one of the first web blogs out there that became blogs. And there's 10 years of free archives in there. And there's a big list of everything that I have that I offer, such as my coaching programs, my books, my other courses. There's a lot of stuff. I've been prolific through the years. So a good way to go there and sign up. Just the top right box, just sign up. You'll get a free report, which is pretty cool. But you'll also be alerted to when I post on there. And feel free to go traipsing through the archives.
There's a lot of great content there. John's also, he's not here to push his products. I'll tell you, simplewritingsystem.com. If you want to become a fantastic copywriter and learn from his home study course, there's no affiliate link. Just go to simplewritingsystem.com and you'll see testimonials. It's a who's who of copy of the testimonials that are on his website. Perry Marshall, John Reese, Daryl Thompson, we pick up David Deutsch, Rich Sheffrin, Terry Dean, Gary Halbert, Dan Kennedy, Harlan Kilstein. I mean, the list goes on of grade A+ copywriters that endorse John's system. So if you want to learn how to write copy, I'm going to ask one last question before I let you go, because it's a really good one, and it is right there. What's your favorite headline ever?
Well, the reason I'm called the most ripped off writer is because early on, when people went online, they needed to learn how to write really quickly. They were buying my book, Kick-Ass Copywriting Secrets of a Marketing Rebel. And I was inviting them to take the headlines and the ads that I had written. I even gave them and I showed them how to knock me off because people were really screwing it up. So the one that I'm probably most famous for is the one-legged golfer ad. Gary Benzavinga used it as an example in his 500, that big $5,000 seminar he did. Clayton Makepeace had it up on his first seminar, and it's the amazing secret discovered by one-legged golfer. Shows you how to hit longer drives and eliminate hook slices and putting like a baboon, something like that. Yeah, the one-legged golfer. There's Classic. A long story behind that. That was the first ad I wrote for a client that was doing golf instructional videos. And I have since written 50 to 100 ads with that. All of them have been successful. They're still up. That's ohp.com. And so that's the one I'm most well known for. And it was a funny process. I have a lot of headlines that I really like.
I've actually found the swipe file for that if anybody wants to read it. And I'm just going to go ahead and comment right here into the stream. Let's see if it posted that. Here, let me just do it this way. There it is. You guys can click on that on Facebook and go check out the amazing secret discovered by one-legger golfer. Adds 50 yards to your drive. John, are you going to try your hand at doing your own Facebook Live?
Yes, that was one of the reasons, again, why I wanted to do this. And thank you again for showing me how to screw it up. So now I know
just how screwed it up together. Right. That's the beauty of it. Thanks again for joining. Everybody give applause to Mr. John Carlton. Thank him in your comments.
Thanks.
And I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, John. And for the rest of you, thanks for watching today. I appreciate you joining me for Joel.LIVE. Next week, I believe we'll be back to our regular show with my cohort, Dan Nickerson, and a new top 10 list. And then hopefully, if I can get it on the schedule right, the week after that, I will have one of the creators of the iPhone, Andy Grignan. So we'll catch you guys then. Until then, you know what to do. It's right there on the sign. Do good stuff. Catch you later.